Hi, I'm Kevin Scott with 100 Huntley Street, and I am thrilled to be joined today with David Hoyt, the president of John Maxwell Company. David, it's great to be with you today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, David, you work for John Maxwell, one of the world's leading leadership experts. Tell me what it's like.
I love my job. I truly feel blessed. I was just talking to a friend last night and was telling him, if someone would have scripted out my journey, I would have never guessed it, and just feel truly privileged to get to work for who I get to work for in John. But just as importantly, get to do what we get to do in training and developing leaders. So I am blessed.
Okay, so tell us what the John Maxwell Company does, because a lot of people, they've heard of John Maxwell or they've read a book, but what does the John Maxwell Company do?
Yeah. So John founded his first organization way back in the mid-1980s. We're basically the current iteration of what he's doing. So we really do 5 things. We do events, training, resources, coaching, and consulting. And at the end of the day, it's about developing leaders. It starts with them, the person, so we do a lot around personal growth, but then we also will work with their organizations around organizational effectiveness, building great teams, that sort of thing. So at the end of the day, it's about developing leaders.
Okay, so there's more than just reading a book or watching a talk that John has given. How else can the viewers get plugged in to what you guys are doing?
Sure. I'd encourage them first to check out our website, johnmaxwell.com. We have everything from John's blog there to we have weekly newsletters that are free, and then we have all kinds of resources. In fact, with John and his ability to create content, we've actually got 900 different resources, if you can imagine that. And then we do a couple major events a year. We have our training workshops, our coaching, consulting. So just depending on the level that people want to plug in, trust me, there are lots of opportunities.
So David, you believe that leadership really is important. John Maxwell says everything rises and falls on leadership. So tell me why you're so passionate about equipping the next generation of leaders.
So for us, and you said it, John teaches, we believe everything rises and falls on leadership. So if you look at any issue or problem in the world today, we think if we can better equip those leaders, we can better combat whatever those challenges are. I'm a fairly young leader. I just turned 40 earlier this year. So I've had a passion, especially making sure that John's principles are transferable to all generations. That it's not just for his generation, but that we link it back and that we make sure that we can reach leaders of all ages. So one of the big focuses of our organization is how do we make it sustainable? How do we take the principles where they'll live on beyond John? We're doing all kinds of things to do that. But I believe everybody has leadership capability inherently in them. Some more so than others, but everybody's leadership can be developed. They may not have a position that says they're a leader, but we're all leaders. We're leaders in our family, we're leaders in personal relationships, and all of us can develop and become better at it.
I like what you said at the end there, that all of us can develop and become better at it. There are some people that teach that leadership, you're born with it or you're not. And how can someone develop themselves? How can someone become a better leader?
So we believe it starts with the law of process, and that's leaders develop daily, not in a day. And basically, it's a journey. It's not just reading a book. It's not just attending an event. It's saying every day, what can I do to develop my skills? For me, it's been a combination of a number of things. I'm an avid reader, read pretty much daily, read, of course, John stuff, but I read a lot of other things besides John as well. Listen to podcasts as well as all kinds of audio lessons. And then for me, mentoring has been huge. I've gone and over time selected a number of mentors that I meet with frequently that I can go and ask questions of and develop. And so when I think back on my journey, it's by no means overnight, but as I look back, I can say, yeah, I've really developed as a leader, and I believe anybody can do that.
David, tell me about a mentor, because you are the president of a very large leadership company. So I would love to hear a story about somebody who's mentored you and who's helped develop you as a leader.
Sure. So I've been very blessed with several. One in particular is a gentleman by the name of Reggie Campbell. Reggie actually formed an organization called Radical Mentoring, and so it was 12 years ago I went through his one-year program called the Radical Mentoring Group. and it's a meet monthly and work to develop you in a number of areas. Greatly impacted me. In fact, it really turned me on to this whole idea of mentoring, and so I proactively went out and said, I'm not going to end with this group. I'm going to seek out other mentors. And the one commitment that you make when you go through that group is that at a point in the future, you will lead your own radical mentoring group. So about 4 years ago, I started doing that. I'm on my second group and absolutely love it.
That's, I think, an important part of leadership is that after you have been mentored, that then you then turn around and help develop other leaders. And isn't it amazing how when you help other leaders, you grow as well? And I know John is passionate about that. You don't just lead followers, but you lead other leaders. How important is that? And how much does insecurity play a role in sometimes a leader not wanting to have other strong leaders around them?
I think you hit on it. You know, when that's the case, it typically goes back to insecurity. I believe at our core, we all struggle with insecurity. I don't think there's anybody who has no insecurities, but it's how we keep that down to not let that inhibit us, but where we're secure enough to go out and say, hey, that person can be smarter than I am, they can have more experience, they can, whatever it is, but know that they're going to add value to your team. And bring them on board to add value versus to say, I've always got to be the smartest, fastest in the room. If so, I know for us, it would be a very slow organization, but I get the privilege of working with a lot of very talented people. Another law that John teaches is the law of multiplication, and that's where if you just want to add value, you know, lead followers, but if you want to multiply, that's where you really begin to lead leaders.
All right, David, can you give us a sneak peek in what's next from way back to Thinking for a Change or the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership to one of the more recent books that I've enjoyed is Sometimes You Win and Sometimes You Learn. What's next for John and what content is coming out that people can look forward to?
Sure. So in October, this month, John has a brand new book coming out called Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. So you know from the title, it's a book about questions. It's questions that John asks his team. It's questions that John has asked frequently. I think one of John's greatest gifts is asking questions. He doesn't come in with a bunch of answers. Typically in a meeting, he's very quiet. He hears it, and it's all about pulling out the knowledge of the room. And so he shares some tips around that. John is always, though, not only is he excited about whatever's coming out, he's excited about what he's working on next. So he's been writing a book through the summer that won't release for another year, but I'll give a very sneak peek. It's called Intentional Living. And John is easily excitable, but I truly have never seen him as passionate and as excited about intentional living. But that will be out in October 2015, and he believes that this could be ultimately his legacy book. So we will see, but a year to go.
Wow, so intentional living next year. The question thing is interesting to me because I was reading something the other day about the number of questions that children ask. When you're growing up, it's why does this happen? What is this? And as we get older, we tend to ask less questions. They say that children, even by the time they're about in middle school or secondary school, that they really stop asking a lot of questions. What are the questions that we need to be asking?
Yeah. So, you know, questions that John asks frequently is, what am I missing? You know, we all have strengths, and we typically look at situations through our strengths. And so a question that he asks us all the time is, what am I missing? He asks, are we adding value? You know, as an organization, that's one of the things that we seek to do. And so whether it's asking our clients, are we truly adding value to you? And the follow-up question is, what can we do better that will add more value? And for me, it's not even necessarily the specific questions that you ask. It's more about that you come at a conversation, not with the answers, but willing to ask the questions.
All right, David, I want to ask you something personally because you guys really have the opportunity to influence as the John Maxwell Company in organizations and in businesses and with professional sports teams. What role personally does your faith play in what you do in the leadership space?
So for me, it's everything. I mean, it's where it starts. What attracted me to John's organization from the very beginning, which was almost 17 years ago, was that it was a faith-based organization. John is a former pastor. His faith is unbelievably important to him. And where we're privileged now is we get invited into very large organizations, very secular organizations that normally a lot of Christian organizations wouldn't get the opportunity to do so. But because John has crossed over through his books, through his speaking, we get that opportunity. And so our goal as an organization is we want to be salt and light in those environments. We have to, oftentimes stick to the principles that John has pulled from the Bible into his content, not necessarily with scripture references and so forth, but we know where the truth starts from, and we quickly find that people know as an organization, our people, John, are different, and it opens up wonderful conversations for us to have ultimately about our faith.
David, what's your hope and your prayer for leaders?
My hope and prayer for leaders is that they will not grow weary and lose heart. As leaders, they're difficult days, and it's an up and down journey. But that even in the difficult days, they would stay true to their faith, they would stay true to their values, that they would persevere through it, that they wouldn't give up. And so one of our things is not only to give the leadership principles, but it's really to give inspiration and hope that even in the dark days of leadership, and there will be those, that people would persevere through it.
Wow. Really, really cool. Thanks so much, David. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for the work you're doing. And I hope people check out more resources from the John Maxwell Company.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.